Have you ever wondered why it's so freaking hard to ask for help when it comes to quitting alcohol? I'm going to explain why it's so hard to ask for help and why it's actually the key to lasting sobriety. First of all, it doesn't even register as a reasonable option, especially if you're an overachiever. Tell me if this is you. You have plenty of evidence from the past that what you're doing to control your drinking isn't even working, but you also don't want anyone to know that you're actually struggling. Instead of asking for help, you decide to figure it out all on your own. You go into hyper research mode. You do Google searches on how to control your drinking, how to manage your drinking, or even how to quit drinking. You watch tons of YouTube videos, you listen to hours and hours of podcasts like the One Day at a Time Recovery podcast. Yet you keep drinking too much and wake up on the weekends full of shame, regret, hungover, and really just frustrated with yourself. Yet you are still convinced that you can figure it out all by yourself. I'm only saying this because I did the exact same thing for years. And in my deepest despair, I began to believe that I was actually fundamentally broken and that I'd never be able to change. So if you can relate to any of this, then I have really good news for you. You absolutely can change. I haven't had a drink or smoked any weed for over 31 years now. And it all started with me asking for help. Actually, it started with recognizing the truth, which is that I actually needed help, that I wasn't going to be able to do this by myself. This can be a tough admission, especially if you're an overachiever in other areas. You might be kicking ass at work. You might be able to manage a ton of responsibility. You have all the evidence that you should be able to control your drinking, yet you can't. Here's a quote from Albert Einstein that absolutely destroyed my resistance to asking for help. A problem can't be solved with the same mind that created it. That blew my mind. It speaks to the idea that we all operate with a set of subconscious beliefs about the world, about ourselves, which trigger feelings as we move through the world and have different kinds of experiences. Here's the rub. We make decisions emotionally and justify logically. We are either trying to avoid pain or gain pleasure. This means if you have a feeling, then make a decision with the information you already have and then take action. It invokes the law of cause and effect, and you will experience a predictable outcome. These are our patterns of behavior. So if you have a repeating pattern like over drinking because you think you'll be able to control it this time, then that means there is a problem with the subconscious belief. We call that a limiting belief. A limiting belief is either missing information or incorrect information. Okay, so you might be wondering, how do we fix our subconscious beliefs? Well, the short answer is you got to talk to somebody. You got to ask for help. But before I move on, I want to share another reason why it's so hard to ask for help. And I'm going to tell you a little story. When I was growing up, I got the message over and over again that it wasn't safe to share when I was scared or sad or even angry. I would get yelled at, invalidated, gaslit, whatever you want to call it. All these messages were that my feelings were not valid and I couldn't share them with anyone. Honestly, it made me feel like I wasn't good enough. It really affected my self-worth. I began to believe that my feelings were a burden. It wasn't safe for me to ask for help, share my feelings. It meant that I couldn't trust anybody and that I had to figure things out for myself. I also learned to abandon myself, my feelings, for the sake of gaining approval from the adult in my life. These experiences created hyper independence, and I used hyper independence as a coping skill. It actually helped me to survive and accomplish hard goals. But this kind of thinking also comes at a really high cost. For me, ultimately, it cost my ability to control my drinking. It cost me my self-respect and the ability to have honest, healthy relationships. So when the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain of change, that's when I actually found the humility and the willingness to ask for help. They say that pain is the touchstone of all growth. When I experience enough pain, that's when I found the willingness, which is actually really hard to manufacture. Willingness, unfortunately, typically comes out of a lot of pain. So I actually sought out people who had the same struggles that I did. I asked them how they quit drinking. This is when I started taking suggestions and taking the actions required to change my behavior. I looked for people who had what I wanted. I asked them what actions did they take. I took all their suggestions. I would share my thoughts and feelings. I would run different scenarios past them to see how they would handle different kinds of situations. I was gaining different perspectives so that I could have different thoughts and feelings and take different actions. And by taking different actions, I was getting different results. And listen, I made a ton of mistakes. It was messy, it was uncomfortable, but I stayed sober. You can do this too. I am not unique. Millions of people all over the world are staying sober because they ask for help over and over and over again. I think the biggest surprise to me personally going through this process is that asking for help isn't a burden to the person I'm reaching out to. Think about it. Who doesn't love to offer advice? How do you feel when someone asks you for advice? Doesn't it make you feel good about yourself? Doesn't it make you feel valued? So don't listen to that little voice that's telling you that you're a burden. That's a lie. By not asking for help, you're actually robbing somebody of the opportunity to feel good about themselves. Most people really do want to help. The only caveat I'm going to add here is that make sure that you're asking a safe person. Make sure you're asking advice from someone who has what you want. Talk to people who are gentle and loving and compassionate. Not everyone is safe, so you just need to use a little bit of discernment. So, hopefully, this episode will give you a little bit of encouragement that you might need to reach out and ask for help. You do not have to do this alone. And until next time, just be a little bit kinder to yourself and others. And I'll see you on the next episode of Sobriety Reset.